What's up, guys? So we're going to be talking about actually the monopolization of power by state actors. And this is actually very important for the American society we live in currently. Now, people ask why protests today often feel like they don't actually change anything. And the answer isn't that people don't care. It's that power only responds to pressure, and not all pressure are equal. So modern states hold what Max Weber called a monopoly on the legitimate use of force. They control policing, courts, and the military. That means leaders don't feel compelled to act unless there's sustained pressure breathing down their necks, whether it's politically, economic, or legal. One of the biggest propaganda points that they push onto our young brains is how they frame the civil rights movement as if like it was peaceful protesting that was what caused the government and the people to come to the border and negotiate. But that's not true. So even though campaigns like the Birmingham campaign and the Selma to Montgomery marches created national pressure, none of this actually caused pressure for the actual government to change stuff. It wasn't until massive urban unrest in the mid 1960s, like the Detroit Uprising of 1967, more violent elements such as Malcolm X and the Black Panther movement. By the way, if you guys haven't seen one of my videos, Malcolm X is literally one of my heroes of all time. That forced the government and the state actors to come to the negotiating table with frontmen that they themselves incinerated and put through, like MLK, and actually caused change. But the minute they got it, and there was less pressure, they just stopped. So that's why you don't see any good basically civil rights movement legislation that has been pushed since the 60s, because they frame it as if, oh, we got to racial equality. But then Lyndon B. Johnson, because of these most violent elements, created the I think it's called Kernel Commission, which warned that the country was moving towards two societies. These elements didn't replace nonviolence; they increased the urgency for federal action alongside ongoing urgency. So the takeaway isn't that one tactic won; it's that change came from combined pressure. These people literally have to feel the fire on their necks. Now we look at protests today. There's no sustained economic pressure. There's no organization that literally forces these politicians to sweat. And there's no electoral consequences. They know they get your vote no matter what. They know that you guys have become political slaves. You'll vote for whoever your political person is. You don't even give a fuck about the person as long as he's Democrat or he's Republican. Now, again, it's the real lesson here is that it's not that governments don't listen, it's that they only really respond to incentives. All right, and understanding that difference is the gap between symbolic protesting and actual leverage. All right, so, and this is the uncomfortable part. Once a state understands it holds the overwhelming share of violence and power, it has very little incentive to change its own. All right, there's nothing that threatens their position, their funding, or their ability to stay in office. Change becomes optional, and that's why you see long stretches where people protest, organize, and speak out, and nothing occurs. All of these wars in the Middle East have had the biggest protests to ever occur in American history, whether it's those that famous 3 million protests in 2003 or the No Kings protests yesterday, where they hit a new record for people. And then when you look at other countries that have undergone rapid political change, like Nepal or Bangladesh, you'll see what actually forced transitions. It wasn't awareness. It wasn't non-violent protesting. All right, it wasn't this bullshit that they sell you. It was sustained, undeniable pressure that made the status quo harder to maintain than changing it. And the lesson isn't about copying a path. It's about knowing. You have to know that we have to make these mofos sweat. The minute these mofos sweat, I guarantee you they'll come to the negotiating table.